back, but it's a different stream, so people probably don't know to join this stream.
So should we keep going?
Um, I don't know. My guess is we that one cut out, and this one isn't really going to be very visible. So I don't know if it's worth you want to do it and then stitch it together later, or what?
Well, if
What
you
do
want
you
to
want to do?
suggest, I mean, I'll just make one comment on that because I actually think this is very interesting. I think that, I mean, there's the question of the time lock, which is cool, but I think to me, this is more of an opportunity to create protocols to basically create new forms of reputation and insurance. I think this is actually a very interesting opportunity for people in the Nostr ecosystem to start exploring. So, one question is, can I say I have this amount of money? Can I just prove I have that money? Well, that's what proof of reserves and companies like Hoseki already have solutions built out for that, which is great, but it doesn't answer any of the questions of like potential, collusion with other people or moving the funds around after that.
But what is how does it work with the prove that I have the money? It means something about like
You
signing a message.
sign a message with, I guess, the UTXO that controls a certain amount of Bitcoin that proves, the holder of this private key signed this message, so they have
But
the private key.
yeah, but the issue is if you're talking about like a mortgage, you're back in TradFi, and now you're back in KYC land. And so how do you tie that signed message
Well,
to particular KYC?
this is where I'm going with this. So I think then the more interesting question is that's like step zero. The more interesting question is building a protocol where you can demonstrate, for example, if I were going to sign a message for this, there's a couple of different ways I can do this. One is I want to say, not only do I have control of this UTXO, but two, I'm committing this UTXO to a very specific loan. So there's a
Yeah.
message basically that says like, hey, here's the loan that I'm taking out. This UTXO is tied to this for some specified amount of time, whether it's
Yep.
time locked or not. Then you may have a separate piece. And again, if you do this more modular, you can plug and play depending on who you're working with, which is kind of like a KYC module. And so I know, this is kind of like some of the vision for what TBD was working on with verifiable credentials and all of the Web5 stuff. I think this can get rebuilt in Nostr is my guess of where it's going to happen. But you could literally have, a third party that says, so imagine you have the person that holds UTXO, you have the lender, then you also have a KYC provider. And maybe the lender has a list of KYC providers that they're willing to work with. So then you, as the UTXO holder, go and work with whoever the KYC provider is. They say, yep, we know this key, whatever, out of band, this person, whatever is who they say they are. And then the lender can choose who they're willing to accept their verifiable credentials from. So someone then attests on top of that loan. So as the UTXO holder, I say, I'm associating my UTXO with this loan. On top of that, this third party has come in and given me some whatever credibility and signed a message saying, yes, we know this is Max or whoever they say they are. But someone has to put all those pieces together.
I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I think that solves the problem that you put forth, David.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like those feel to me like the right kinds of building blocks. My guess is the current system is not as exacting as one might imagine. Like there's a lot of wiggle room in how it actually works, but it's like good enough and people understand it. And then all these ingredients could be built out into a totally new system that's actually much easier to verify and more open and actually more rigorous about how it works. But it does take somebody kind of pushing that agenda and putting those pieces together and then kind of building the product on top of that and delivering that to the market.
Looping back to our earlier conversation, my guess is, again, you look where the tectonic plates are shifting, maybe the place to really get this thing going, because again, like whenever you have to fight the inertia of the old world, it's tough, and unless it's at least 10x better or 100x better, it's just, and even then with Bitcoin, right, it's still a multi-decade process. Maybe someone's going to pilot this in a brand new area like loans for agents. So you have autonomous agents that are out there and you're like, okay, this agent wants a loan, okay, that means all of the old world system is just thrown out of the window. Who's going to build a financial system for agents? And that all has to do with like native public private keys from the ground up. There is no like concept of the human. That to me is like an interesting area that I would be exploring.
Yeah. Touching on the point I was sharing before is I think you know a lot of times in consumer internet stuff you want to find people who are severely underpowered because they become the big champions, and it strikes me that with this kind of idea, there's a bunch of people who probably have some amount of Bitcoin wealth who have very little TradFi wealth, and they would be the people who would be underpowered candidates that they like really want this, and if you can provide them even a fairly broken solution, they they will gobble it up and use it and sort of promote it and ask for more because they're sort of like so disempowered in the current system, and this would become like the first step of empowerment. But I know Steve, you've been a little active on Twitter, kind of asking like where have the open source developers been and why are we not part of this conversation? Have you heard anything back about from Pulte or any of the other participants in this?
Still don't know the requirements. So I think that would be good to have published. I got reminded of the startup, I think it's pronounced Hoseki app. As Sam he used to work for Fidelity, started that several years ago. They do proof of UTXO ownership, including for self-custody. So that seems like a piece of the puzzle. Yeah, I mean, many open source Bitcoin advocates liked my tweet, but yeah, no one's signed up yet to work on this. Although, I guess maybe it's less of a open source project and more like a product that needs to be built that takes a bunch of existing open source software and bundles it together into a compelling package for consumers.
Yeah, and also I guess part of that, it might be a new startup opportunity, but part of that would be whoever's driving that initiative should be in the conversation as we're figuring out how the U.S. exchanges that get the regulated U.S. exchanges participate in whatever information sharing network there is. Does that person have a seat at the table? Kind of
another natural. I didn't mention Casa, but like Nick Newman too would be a natural person. Like he should have a seat at the table. Casa, Unchained, River, all those companies. I don't think they understand yet, and clearly they should be in the loop on this. So it'd be good if the government published the requirements and included folks like that at the seat of the table.
Do we know which U.S. exchanges are approved? I assume Coinbase is one.
Coinbase.
Is that the only one, or because I would have guessed River would be another candidate?
Did they announce Coinbase was approved?
No.
I think it's just an assumption. We don't know. I don't think anyone knows yet. A product idea, and perhaps this is something for me to play with vibe coding. I could see something like BTC seasoning.xyz or season.xyz, maybe BTC paprika.xyz. And I do think there's a really interesting opportunity to build for this long tail, whether it's agent loans or the kind of marginal, the people on the edges that got rich off Bitcoin early on. That to me is extremely promising for someone to build this parallel system. And maybe it's less, I agree the Rivers of the world should be the ones really hammering home on this work with the traditional mortgage lenders, but I think there's going to be a huge opportunity for a sort of parallel financial system, parallel lending system for agents, the sort of marginal people, let's say, and that's an area I would definitely be sniffing in. And so maybe we'll help some of those guys get seasoned.
Yep.
Should
and
we?
One of the things. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things that I would say is best about this announcement. I don't know if I can't tell yet how much real impact this has, given that it's FHA loans and it's not using it as collateral, but it's using it as asset evaluation. So it's a very kind of, in a sense, it applies to a lot of people, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a very narrow set of people who actually get value from they have an FHA or need an FHA loan, and they need to demonstrate additional reserves beyond what their income shows. It may be a bit of a niche, I don't know, but I think it does drive the narrative forward that Bitcoin is relevant as an asset to consider for any kind of loan, mortgages, but also any other kind of loan. It starts to kind of give it some more credibility. So I do think the more that this narrative emerges, the better it is for Bitcoin in all kinds of contexts. Even if this one, I don't know how much it gets used.
Yeah, I agree too. Is the argument then, just to be clear, because I didn't realize that, I thought you could use it as collateral. So that actually seems a lot less powerful. If you can't use it as collateral, is the benefit besides maybe getting approved when you wouldn't have gotten approved that you might get a better interest rate?
Yeah, I think you could get approval where you wouldn't have gotten approved. You could get a better interest rate, but basically you're showing the lender hey, I have such and such, say W-2 income. that should qualify me for a certain value of a home. And they say, well, do you have 12 months of reserve in case you lose your job, that you can still pay your mortgage? And so you can show that reserve in US dollars and stocks, or now you could show it in Bitcoin. As long as it's held in,
or fart coin.
Or fart coin, maybe, yeah.
He said cryptocurrency. He said cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Bitcoin. So
yeah, I saw a Nostr post from Alex Gladstein this morning that I thought was just right on the money. It's like, because he was talking about how he was in DC. It is, again, not to harp on this point, we have to move forward, but it's just like crypto has done so much damage. It's so frustrating. Like, why is Bitcoin still being lumped in with Fartcoin? Or even Ethereum?
Someone at the event last night said that, jokingly, that they are going to create a new coin and then sell one of those tokens to their friend for $1, and all of a sudden they're worth $10 million, and then use that for their Fannie Mae loan.
Yeah.
So I think there has to be some kind of liquidity requirement, among other things.
Yeah.
Ultimately, just Bitcoin. But
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, we're
it is what it is. Yeah, let's wrap.
Should we wrap? We're a little over.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Cool.
All
right. Well,
good to see you guys.
See you guys in person soon.
Hey, now are we doing something different next week because of 4th of July?
So I think we're not doing it on the 4th of July because it's the 4th of July, and we did share enthusiasm for not missing next week though. So we need to come to an agreement. Are we going to do it on Wednesday or Thursday? Or I think we're pretty flexible. So anyone who's planning to tune in next Friday, just a heads up that we'll probably do Wednesday or Thursday instead.
Yeah. But look for it on Wednesday or Thursday because we're doing.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
All right. Bye everyone.
See ya.
Goodbye.